this last week, at this very meeting, somebody who plans on selling their house next year and moving to Texas, of all places, asked me, should I buy solar for my home? And today, I'm going to answer that question, I hope. Solar, as she mentioned, has been around for a long time. And whether or not you rent or own your own home, solar is reachable and important to you. So if you rent your home, there's a couple of different options. You can, I was going to kind of demystify this process and go through what you can look for and kind of what's available out there. It's pretty interesting because I kind of nerd out when I get something and I look at all the different things that are possible. And so for renters, if you want to buy, you can buy solar. You can go to PG&E and you can get this thing called Solar Choice, and you can go in there and find out how much extra. You have to pay a little bit more extra for it. Then depending on your usage, probably about $10 more a month. But then you're doing something good for the planet and you've got clean energy. And you're buying from these big solar projects that are throughout the state. And you have access to that. Another option is to convince your landlord that they should put solar on the building, whatever kind of building it is, if it's an apartment building or a house, and there's ways that they can do that that are relatively inexpensive. So I'm going to go through kind of the three main ways that you can do it. So one is to lease a solar system. And that means you're signing a power purchase agreement. You're allowing your roof to be used. Company comes in, they bring their panels in, they put them on, and you buy the solar from them. This is illegal in many states because you don't own the solar system. You don't have to maintain it, that's a good thing, but your lease is typically 15 to 20 years. So if you own your home and you plan on selling it, you're going to have a really hard time selling that home because nobody wants to take on that lease. And oftentimes you have to buy that lease out in order to be able to sell the house. So do not lease a solar system if you want solar. It looks at the first that it's going to be cheap and easy, an easy way to do it. It's not going to work. So financing. You can finance a system, you can go to a bunch of different, look at all the different companies. They all have different financing options. And they all have different terms and different ways to sort of make it look more appealing. And it varies really widely. And each company is going to install different panels because the technology is constantly changing. It's silicon-based right now, and there's a lot of different types of panels. A year, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, you would have been buying panels that were like 200 watts, 250 watts. Now, when you buy panels, they're 300 kilowatts. And so, 300 watts, sorry, 300 watt panels. They keep getting more and more efficient. And every company, they'll use the panels for a little while, they'll sell them for a little while, and they'll pick something new because the companies are continuing manufacturing as things progress. So you have to just shop around for that. That's an important thing. Interest rates from all these different companies when you're financing, they're completely different. They can range from 7 to 15%. You really have to read the fine print on that. And then there's maintenance agreements. You never know quite what you're getting into. You have to read the fine print. So then if you can, you want to purchase, because purchasing is the way to go. It's challenging, you have to have the money up front, but this is the way to go. It's most costly up front, but it's cheapest in the long run. You're not paying $7,000, $10,000 in interest over the 15 years that you're financing it. And that makes a lot of difference. There's a lot of incentives when you buy it. If you buy a system up front, you get your tax breaks, which you don't always get for financing, because when you finance, usually the company takes the tax break. So when you buy it, you get your 30% tax break, and then you can get all these other incentives. Usually, you go through whatever company you're going through, and you can get up to 40% off. So really a good way to go if you can, save your money until you can buy it and purchase it up front. How much solar do you get? And this is a tricky one. It's all about the numbers, and you really don't have to know, but one of the things you do is you look at your average monthly usage, which is going to range anywhere from 400 to 700 kilowatt hours, and then you add up your yearly usage, and in this example, you would get a 4 to 6 kilowatt system. Transferring from kilowatt hours to kilowatts is a little bit complicated. You can Google it, plug the numbers in on the formula, and they'll tell you. But all the companies that you talk to, they all have a slightly different way of calculating it, and they're trying to show you that they've got the best option. So you just have to read through the fine print. That's kind of all there is to it. So this is the future, and this is one of the coolest things, I think, is that there's additional incentives that have come out through PG&E. This is a self-generation incentive program, and what they're doing is there's been $11 million allocated to this incentive package for adding batteries to your solar system. And the reason that I got interested in this is last February, when we had power out for 5 days. I had no power for 5 days, like everybody else. But I also had no water because my house is above my water. So I had no water, no power. And I have this beautiful solar system on the roof, but I couldn't use it because the solar system shuts down when there's no power coming in order to protect the people working on the lines. So it's so frustrating to have this beautiful power being generated and not be able to do anything. So the battery, I think I have a picture of the battery. With a battery, isn't it beautiful? With a battery, it then will be, you can work it off grid. You can charge it during the day, you can use it at night, and when the power shuts down, it automatically transforms it so that it doesn't go out to the grid, and you can be self-sufficient and use it. And one of the biggest challenges for me was making sure I had enough that could use that water pump to get the water up the hill. And this was able to do it. So this is the newest thing by Elon Musk. It's touched my life. And you can manage it from your phone, which is so cool. Wow. So this green shows what the battery is doing. So I used it all night, and then in the early mornings it needed to be used. I used it, and then the yellow is I can do this with this. The yellow is the solar. The blue is what the house is using. You can kind of see it in the background there, and then the gray is the grid. So I didn't use anything from the grid, but about noon my battery was charged and I pushed all the rest of that energy back out to the grid. And that gets stored, I get credit for that, and in the winter time when my solar's not producing as much, I get to use it by bringing it back from the grid. See, the goal is not to be off-grid, but to support the grid with all these different systems having power and not putting as much power on the central stations. So this is the future. These power walls, these battery things, and the future is here. It's pretty cool, pretty great technology. There's a lot of information out there. If you decide to go solar, I wish you guys luck. Thank you.
I wonder if anyone remembers this. Platoon, attention! Exercise 1, conditioning drill 1, the high jumper. This is a 4-count exercise done at a moderate pace. I'll count the cadence, you count the repetitions. Starting position, move. Ready? Exercise. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're supposed to say 1. But back to PowerPoint. This is a speaking to inform speech, and as speech number 1, it is the speech to inform. It's the building block. Has 3 objectives. Select a topic that's new and useful for your audience. Organize the topic and the material so that you can accomplish 2 things. Your audience can understand it, and they can retain it. And finally, present it so that we learn. So, overall, accomplished. There's several areas to praise. Your knowledge, your enthusiasm, you really had the audience listening and enjoying what you were doing. And you presented a lot of useful information. Your organization was okay. I'll talk about that a little bit more as we go on. The meaningfulness to the audience and the way that you made it meaningful was excellent. You told us about some of the options, some good, some bad, and the option that is near and dear to you, the one that you love. And so that knowledge, that enthusiasm, and everything that you put together was great. Where could you improve it? If you're going to inform us, I would suggest you tell us what you're going to tell us, you tell us, and then you tell us what you told us in your organization. And you might use the power of 3 there. So summarize those things that were part of the content. Number two, when you use the graphs and the numbers and the other things, you got to help us out a lot. So you talked about 250 to 300 watts. Then you talked about kilowatts. On one of your slides you had 7,000 to 10,000 kilowatts, and you read it as 7 to 10 kilowatts. But most importantly, that graph. You got to orient us. What do the axes mean? What do the colors mean? So first orient us on the graph. Then show us what the information is and help us interpret it. That is the star. Get rid of most of those slides. Keep your graph. It's the hook because it's on the internet. It's yours. It's meaningful. And that's the most important thing to do. And then stronger closing. That's all. Thank you.